Hi everyone, it's Chris. I'm back today sharing this card that I have made for a special friend. I am using stamps from Unity and from the Ton Stamps today. I am going to be using this Large Peony number 5. That is the title of the set from the Ton Stamps. And I love this floral because it is a card filler. It is a beautiful image. I'm going to be stamping on Artist Choice cardstock, which is a very smooth textured paper that works really well with colored pencils and for Copic markers as well. That is available at Gina K Designs. Now I'm going to be using my original MISTI to do my stamping today. And because this is a very large floral, I want it to be off the edge of my card front, just a tiny bit. So I'm using my creative corners to give me a little extra space for that stamp to hang over the edge. I left my stamp in my original MISTI because I'm going to be using it again later. So I'm bringing out my mini so I can add the leaf image behind the floral. So I have a mask that was cut out of just some printer paper, and I masked my flower and added my leaf image. I stamped today with Soft Stone ink by Paper Tray Ink. It is a very pale gray, and that's exactly what I wanted because I'm going to be doing some no-line coloring. I am adding some color here with my Prismacolor pencils. Today I'm coloring only with the French gray colors. I'm starting with the darkest of the French grays. This is the 90%. And then I'm going to move to the 70 and the 50, the 30, and then the 10%, bringing this color in. But I started with the darkest first. I want to put in the areas that are in shadow or are part of a cast shadow from other petals. My light source, because I'm right-handed, I almost always put my light source coming from the upper right. So most of the color is on the bottom left of each of these petals. And I know that I'm going to be adding more color. So I'm not over coloring right now. I want to use some Gamsol and blend this out and see how this looks. And then I can always come back and add more color and draw in some more detail with pencils over the top. But once you have too much color, it's really hard to take it away. So let's see what's happening when I add the Gamsol. My Gamsol I store in a little plastic Tupperware cup. Inside the cup is a piece of natural sea sponge, and I add just enough Gamsol to saturate that sponge. And then I dip my paper tortillas into the sponge to pick up some Gamsol, not into a puddle of liquid, because I don't want to have too much Gamsol on the paper or it becomes kind of just a mushy mess and you lose the tip of that blending tortilla very quickly. Now I am just working with the lightest color first. I am pulling that 10% gray across my floral, across the petals, and I am leaving just a little bit of areas that I know are the most highlighted areas, a little bit white because I want to have, I'm building up contrast here. Now I'm working into those mid-tones of the French grays and just look at how the Gamsol affects these colors as they blend together. I think this is the best part of using Gamsol is seeing the solvent break down that wax and pigment and blend the colors together. Gamsol is a fun and easy way to color because you're not putting layers and layers and layers of pencil pigment down first. You are just kind of scribbling in your basic colors and letting the Gamsol do the work for you. And I just love watching the shapes appear just by using a variety of intensity and contrast, and it just is, it's fun to watch as this happens. So I've just sped this up and I'm letting you watch pretty much the whole video recording here. I had a little over an hour of video here and just sped it up so that you can kind of see this happen along with me, because this is my favorite part as these colors blend together. Now I'm realizing as I am working with this Gamsol that I do not have nearly enough color added to these shaded areas of my floral. Definitely underneath these large petals that are extending into the foreground, I need to add quite a bit more of this darker 90% color. I need more definition and more contrast to create the shape that I am desiring out of my floral. So I'm going to add more of each of the colors, kind of pulling that color outward and just defining each of these petals, how they bend and fold and kind of overlap. I need to just define it further by adding more color. I need a little definition on the upper petals on the top right as well. So I'm using the lighter colors just to kind of outline briefly, and when I add a little bit of the Gamsol, it's going to pull those colors out, and you can really manipulate the wax and the pigment with the Gamsol. Now, I don't recommend adding Gamsol too much. You're going to end up with, eventually you're going to kind of get a greasy spot on your paper because, it is a refined petroleum product is what it really is. So you have to use it sparingly. So now that I have done it a second time, I am just direct coloring with the sharpened pencil and getting those really defined lines put back in. And I can go to the lighter colors depending on the area of the flower and how much highlight I have towards those upper petals. Well, now I'm quite happy with this, so I'm going to finish this. I'm going to go back to my original MISTI. My stamp is still in the exact same spot, so when I add my paper to that creative corner again, I can stamp exactly over my original stamping. And this time I'm going to stamp with Versamark ink, and I'm going to emboss this with clear embossing powder just to give a little more definition to those upper petals where it is very light. I'm going to do the same thing with my leaf image. So I went back to my mini MISTI because that stamp was left there as well. I have to remember to replace my mask so I don't get embossing across my floral. So I will quickly heat emboss that, and then I'm going to add my greeting. My greeting says "You had me at hello," and this is from the stamp set by the same name. This is from Unity Stamps, and it is designed by Gina Kay actually for Unity. And because it is a cling stamp, it's a little bit harder to see if you have this lined up perfectly straight. So I like to use a plastic sheet in my MISTI, and I will stamp on that plastic sheet with a dark color, and then I can slide my card front behind that plastic and test exactly where it's going to stamp. And then once I just remove the plastic, I can stamp directly on my card front, knowing that it is going to be perfectly lined up. So I have heat embossed that. I stamped it in the soft stone and then heat embossed in clear, just like my floral image. And now I'm going to add kind of a warm toned background, and that's going to really make my cooler toned flower really show up. So I'm using Distress Oxide ink and a foam blender, and I am inking a background with frayed burlap Distress Oxide ink. And my mask is just a paper mask that I have cut out of some copy paper, and it's not the best for ink blending, but I am moving it around and making sure that I have all of my little petals pretty well protected, and pulling that color actually off the mask onto my card panel rather than pulling it towards my floral image. But I don't have a mask for the leaf image, so I need to make one. So I'm going to make a good one. This is Masket paper. It is a plastic film. It is a temporary adhesive backed film, and I stamped on that first, and then I just cut it out with my scissor. It's a little tricky to place because it is such a lightweight film, but it works great for ink blending. It makes a very very thin, very usable mask, and you don't have to worry about it peeling up as you do your ink blending like I did on my paper mask. So I keep adding a little bit of color, deepening that, and then I'm going to actually get brave and I'm going to spritz the Distress Oxide, to get a little bit of, water droplets on my background. So with my paper mask covering my flower and my masket mask still in place, on my leaves, I just spritz with water, use a paper towel, and once it was dry, I assembled my card on a top fold white card base. So there's my card. Thanks for watching.